Hello there and welcome. This is your virtual workshop, Tips for Midlife Career Pivots. If you are here, then that means you are ready to take action. So, there are two things that I need you to do to make sure that you get the most out of this experience. Number one, you're going to need some kind of way to take notes. I'm a little old school, so I usually just do pencil and paper or some type of journal, but you could also take notes digitally, maybe through your phone or a separate window on your computer. The other thing that you'll need to do is to download the accompanying workbook. That link is at the bottom of this slide, or you could scan the QR code. But the direct URL is bit.ly /midlife workbook. If you need a little time, pause the video so that you can gather these materials and get ready to work. My name is Dr. Akila Willery, and I am your guide through this presentation. A little bit about me, if we've never met in person, I am a lifelong educator, and my career has spanned education to the corporate space, the technology space in particular, and now into entrepreneurship. I've had roles such as technology strategist, consultant, professional learning executive, all throughout those different periods. I hold a doctorate of education and also a master's in instructional technology. I'm a certified UX designer and also a certified virtual learning instructor. And right now, I do a lot of e learning development and course creating. So, if you want to talk business, I've got all of those different things in my background. But if you just want to talk about midlife and all the fun things that go along with that journey, you could also follow me at my podcast, which is on YouTube. It is titled the Melanated Midlife Podcast. I would love for you to join the conversation there. So, for the agenda with this workshop, there are a few big topics that we are going to cover. First, we're going to break down the myths about making midlife career transitions. Then, we're going to talk about identifying your unique value and updating you on modern job search strategies, how to overcome ageism, and how to create your personal plan of action. And if at the end of all of this, you feel like maybe you would like for you and I to do some work together, I'm going to let you know how you can take advantage of some of my resources and even my one-to-one coaching program. So stay tuned for the end of this workshop to get that information. Alrighty. So let's start off with the modern day job search process. And yeah, there really is an old way and a new way. And if you are a midlifer like me, then it's very possible that when you first entered the workforce, roughly about 25 years ago, then this might look like some of the technology that you were working with. It really led to jobs that put us in cubicle spaces like this. And that's okay because that's what we all aspire to. But I will tell you that now the workforce can look a little bit different and some folks are working from home in a very digital type of environment. Now, a little bit about me. When I first entered the workforce back in 1998, yeah, way back in the last millennium, I was a K 12 school teacher, in particular, a high school history teacher. So, the way that I found my job was by attending an in person job fair. And at that in person job fair, I was expected to bring copies of my paper resume. Yeah, let me say that again, my paper resume. And I filled out a paper job application on a clipboard. And after I did that, I was brought into a situation where I sat across the table from a recruiter who asked me a set amount of questions. And after that, it took about a week for them to check my references, make sure that I was certified properly, and was offered a role very quickly. That's what it was like back then. And a big part of the process after I filled out that paper application was very much out of my control. But today, in this digital economy, a lot of what you're doing in your job search is very much going to be online and virtual. So, you as a midlifer, somebody that probably has been at the top of your game in one particular role or one particular industry, you might be curious how things have been updated since the last time you were job searching. So back then, a lot of jobs were posted in places like newspapers. Maybe there were job boards where you physically saw something put up on a board. And you might have heard about opportunities through physical networking, people that you knew. A lot of the competition, the people that you were applying against, other candidates that you were competing with, were in local markets. So you really just knew about who was right there in your hometown. And just like me, you probably had to hand over physical copies of your resume that you either mailed into a recruiter or you faxed over. And the jobs were probably long term employment that had very nice pensions if you stayed there for a good amount of time. And the techiest the role got was understanding Microsoft Office. Well, things have changed a bit. They've updated a lot. So now job postings are going to be online. In particular, some of the biggest job boards are LinkedIn and Indeed. Instead of competing in just your local market, you're competing against candidates from all over the globe. Resumes are not going to be handed in physically. They're expected to be uploaded digitally and portfolios. So it's got to be a way that you can send it over digitally with a link to anyone that is going to be in the hiring position. Instead of long term employment, you will see that a lot of roles are a part of the gig economy, meaning that they're temporary or freelance or contract work. And that means a lot less job security. And you're expected to be digitally literate. You're expected to understand how to collaborate remotely, have some cloud computing skills, and understand how to analyze data. So, that's a lot. And I was struck by the differences when I transitioned out of my K 12 education environment, which I was there for 23 years. And when I went out into the corporate world, I had to walk out into the unknown. I really had no idea what to expect. But lucky for you, I learned a lot very quickly. And since I'm an educator, nerdy girl, that means I took a lot of good notes along the way so that I'm able to come back and share that with you. So, here's some hard truths that I want to make sure you understand. Hard truth number one: a resume alone won't get you the job. It's going to take a little bit more than just having a quick updated resume to make you stand out in this job search phase. And the job searching will take time. I know a lot of us will say, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get started because I'm afraid that, I'm going to jeopardize things, but it's going to take time anyway. So I always urge people that are thinking about transitioning to start job searching while you still have a job. Don't wait until it's too late. You need to be seeding those efforts right away. And other hard truth number three: ATS, which is a software term that I will explain, is going to scan your resume and application and probably not a human. So that means the process is very much going to be digital. It's not going to get you face to face with people right away, but that actually is the goal. So let's talk about what that looks like in the modern space. So, as far as job searching starts, you have to go online to places like I've just mentioned, LinkedIn and Indeed, and you've really got to start networking. There's going to be people there from your past work history, people in your current work, people that are maybe in industries that are adjacent, all of that. You need to start getting out there, meeting folks, digitally connecting with them, and finding out what the landscape looks like. Then, once you hear about opportunities, you're going to apply for those based on what you've heard about in your network. And if you're really curious about how to get started with LinkedIn, I just happen to have a LinkedIn Get Started guide that I will be happy to share with you if you contact me once you go through this workshop. So, once you do that, just like I was saying before, you submit that application, and guess what? It doesn't go to a human being, it goes through a scanning software, which is called an applicant tracking system, also known as ATS for short. And with that software, it basically is scanning hundreds of applications very quickly to make the job of hiring managers and recruiters a lot more efficient. Because remember, they're not just taking applicants from their local market anymore, they're scanning applications from candidates around the world. So there could be one job application and 500 people have applied. That is very, very common. So the ATS scans it and then it parses out right away who is going to be a good fit for that position based on credentials, work history, keywords that you mention in your application and on your resume. And if all goes well, if you're one of those people that makes it through that scanning, then you get to this part of the process where a human recruiter will probably make contact with you. And they're going to do some type of phone screening just to double check that you understand the job description, you understand the salary and compensation, and just to, pretty much weed you out another way. And then if you get past that point, they're going to pass your information to the direct hiring manager for that role. And that will be an interview, probably a little more formal. And it may also be virtual. And then who knows? The hiring manager may require that you do some type of performance assessment, some type of presentation, which also might be virtual. And that presentation could be viewed or, pretty much screened by an entire team or a panel of experts from within the company. So this is a lot, but I want you to understand where the priority is. It's going to be making contact with that human recruiter because once you get to that point, it pretty much unlocks a lot that can stay within your control. So that's what we focus on is making sure that you are able to connect with human beings that can open doors for you. Remember that. We're going to come back to that point in just a minute. So for me, when I work with clients, people that I bring into my fold, I have created a framework. And these are basically the 5 areas that I help folks work through, especially midlifers, when they are considering making some type of career shift. It involves first self assessing, really looking at who you are, your skills, your background, and where your strengths are. Then we go into collecting your receipts. And that's really where we dig into all of your accomplishments, your past accolades, any certifications, awards, all the evidence basically that proves you are the quality candidate that you say you are. Then, like I said, the most important part, the biggest piece of this puzzle is finding your community. That means reaching out, networking, having conversations with people that will either connect you to the job possibilities, folks that might introduce you to people that are decision makers. Making that human connection is the biggest priority in this entire process. There it may be a need for you to go into the next phase, which is upgrading your skills. And even if you're just a titan in your particular industry, there may be some room for you to sharpen some of your digital skills. Because remember, as a midlifer, it's very possible that you need a little bit of extra practice with things in the virtual space and understanding really good ways of digital communication. And lastly, we work on marketing yourself. Doesn't do any good to be a fabulous candidate if nobody knows about it. So you are going to have to take on the responsibility to showcase your skills, showcase your value so that when those opportunities are around, people know exactly who you are and what you bring to the table. All righty. So let's move into what we have in our workbook. So I want you to look at your accompanying workbook and go to page 3. we are going to look at the section breaking down the myths. So, what are we talking about there? I want you to take a moment and ask yourself this question: what is one fear or doubt you have about your ability to pivot careers at this stage in your life? I want you to write that down and ask yourself, is this fear based on facts or is it a story I'm telling myself? And think about it. It could be something like, I'm worried that my tech skills aren't enough in this digital space. Really think about that. And you can pause this video to give yourself enough time to really reflect and answer that question. Next, I want you to think of a time in your life when you overcame a challenge or learned something new. What does this experience show about your ability to adapt and grow? And again, you're going to take a moment to reflect on this. Think of past moments when you felt unsure, but you succeeded anyway. Just like this example, I've transitioned to a new role 5 years ago and learned everything I needed to excel. Really take a moment and write down your example of that time in your life when you were able to overcome a challenge. Pause this video to give yourself enough time to reflect. Now, I want you to think of the possibility of this being reversed. What if a friend came to you with the same doubts that you're feeling right now? What would you tell them to encourage or even support them? Remember, these are questions that really help you shift your perspective and see that your past experiences, skills, and resilience can be your biggest assets. So I want you to write it down as if you were giving advice to your friend and then reread it as if it were written for you. An example might be, hey, friend, your years of experience mean you bring something unique to the table. Don't underestimate your value. I want you to write openly and honestly. And remember, you're in a safe space to really explore these thoughts, so don't hold back. Pause this video to give yourself enough time to reflect. Next, we're going to go to page 4 of your workbook. That section is identifying your unique value. Now I want you to reflect on your accomplishments because at your age, at this stage in your career, I am positive that you have done some really great things. So I want you to take some time in this section of the workbook and write down 3 to 5 career accomplishments that you're most proud of. And this is going to be unique to you and the work that you do in your specific industry. So think about special projects that you've been a part of, or better yet, special projects that you might have even led. Or were there some new processes that you designed and were able to implement for your team or for the work that you produce? And of course, think about the skills that you developed. And we're talking about the things, it doesn't have to be super duper, supernatural, but things that you have developed, skills that are very valuable for you and your particular industry or the industry that you're thinking you want to be moving to. Take a moment to reflect and write that down. Next, I want you to think of those accomplishments, and you're going to connect those accomplishments to the transferable skills that might be relevant in other industries. So, for each accomplishment, I want you to really think about the hard skills that you use in each of those accomplishments. So, like in the past example, think of processes or projects where you showed leadership skills. Definitely, problem solving skills are going to be a big transferable item for any industry that you're thinking about moving into. Also, communication skills, always going to be an asset no matter what industry you're in. Or could you have demonstrated some negotiation skills? If you're thinking about technology or sales in any space, negotiation is a skill that is very valuable. But once you get through this, really take some time to reflect on it. And as I've said before, pause this video to give yourself time to really write it out. And then pro tip from me is you're going to keep this as a skills bank of sorts, where you have this documented with hard examples that you're going to write down that will help jog ideas over time when you start your job search. So these are not things that you'll have to really think hard about in the future because you'll have this document to help you with that process. Now, we're going to take all of this hard work that you've done and we're going to create something that is called your value statement. I want you to think of your value statement as your 30-second elevator pitch, except instead of talking about something that you're selling or some idea of someone else's, you're giving a value statement about you and your professional impact. So use the previous accomplishments and skills that you outlined on the last few pages. And I want you to write a short statement that summarizes what makes you unique and valuable to potential employers. And I've created a template for you that should be easy to follow. So, in this template, which is also in your workbook, you're basically filling it out with your unique information. So this template states with over blank years of experience in blank industry or blank roles, I specialize in blank and have a proven track record of fill in the blank. I am passionate about fill in the blank. So give that some thought. And I really want you to work through this using the information that you have already reflected on in the previous section. Once you've had that craft statement, or excuse me, that value statement crafted, then I'll meet you on the next section. So pause right here, really write that out, and then we're going to talk about where you use it. So it's going to be useful for you in a couple of places. Think about any professional networking events where you might be going in person to rub elbows with other people or professionals in your industry. This is a good place for you to practice your value statement when you're meeting people for the very first time. They don't necessarily want to know your entire history, like where you were born and what your favorite hobbies are. Yes, that might be questions that come up in conversations, but ultimately, they want to know what value you bring as a professional. You also could do this online. Those places online where networking is always happening is, as we mentioned before, places like LinkedIn. You can post this value statement in your bio line, which is going to be at the very top of your profile on your LinkedIn page. There's also a section called your About section, which is given a lot of information about you and your work history and background. You can also put your value statement at the top of that section. Another place for you to put your value statement is going to be at the top of your resume. So, on your resume, surely you know that your name is going to be the very first thing at the top of the document, then your contact information. Then, right beneath that, you can put your value statement. And after you put your value statement, then you follow the format of doing your work history and your education and your background. So, real easy format to follow. But basically, the hard work that you've done in crafting your value statement, these are all the different ways that you'll be able to use it. All right, let's move on to talking about the modern job search strategies. And if you're following along in your workbook, this is page 5 of your workbook that follows this workshop. So, step number one with modern job search strategies, this is what I want you to think about: optimizing your LinkedIn profile. First thing is what people see, and that's going to be you. So, you're going to add a professional profile photo to your LinkedIn page. I want to see what you look like. And that's just a simple headshot, shoulders and head, and that's it. You with a bright smile, looking professional and approachable. Then you're going to write a headline that reflects your career goals, and you'll update your about section with that value statement that you just created. Then think about adding some key accomplishments to your job history. And remember, for your job history, you're not just listing your job duties. As a matter of fact, that's the thing you don't want to do. Instead, when you're talking about your work history and your experience, try to focus on accomplishments, things that you've achieved in your work history, instead of just listing what the day to day duties were. Then I want you to connect with 5 to 10 people in your industry right there in your LinkedIn profile. So, once you've looked at each of these suggestions for optimizing your profile, your to do item is do a quick audit of your LinkedIn profile. And I want you to write there in your workbook all of the things that you might need to go back and now check up on in order to make sure that it is in the best shape possible. So, pause this video and take a little bit of time to take a look at your LinkedIn profile and make sure that you have all of these items taken care of. Next, we're looking at your networking plan. And remember previously, I said that networking really is the biggest priority of the entire job search process. So this is not to be taken lightly. And this sometimes is the area where people shy away. They feel a little bit nervous about getting in front of folks, meeting people, trying to put themselves out there. But I will tell you that it pays off. Building your professional network is going to have the biggest impact on how far you go with the job search process. So let's make sure that all of our time and energy goes into this part. I want you to take a moment and list 5 people in your current professional network who could help you. And that type of help comes in the form of giving you advice about your job search, maybe making introductions to people that are going to be decision makers or might have opportunities available for you. Or they could offer recommendations, which who better to speak on your behalf than people that know your work and know your impact? So if you have time, this is going to actually pay off if you work a little bit on it every day. So I want you to take a moment right now. First, list 5 people that you're going to be able to get help from. Then, for each one of them, I want you to write 3 ways or one of 3 ways that you can connect with them. So, is it going to be reaching out to them with a LinkedIn message? Will it be sending them an email? Or maybe you want to meet them in person and have a conversation over tea or coffee. Take a moment to really reflect on that and write this down in your workbook. When you're ready, then we'll move on to the next step. Step 3 is your resume checklist. And I have some very simple to do items for you to update your resume today. First thing, midlifers, you are not going to put your entire work history. Now, I think about myself, and at my age right now, I've been working for 35 years at this point. I am not going to put all 35 years of my work experience because most of it is not relevant to the types of jobs that I'm looking for right now in this season of life. So, what a good rule of thumb is to keep 10 to 12 years of recent, relevant work experience on your resume. Really think about that. So, if this is, talking about 20 years ago, back in the turn of the millennium in the year 2000, remember all the technology examples that I gave you from back then? The experience with any of those tools are really not going to be relevant to your job today because they frankly don't exist anymore. So think about it. Anything within the most recent 10 to 12 years is going to be where you are at your game. This is where you're up to date with the tools. Also, make sure that you include measurable achievements. Any place that you can attach a number to your work. Did you have an impact where you were the top salesman and you increased revenue by 10%? Or maybe you were a team lead and you were able to reduce cost for that particular year. Or maybe you were in charge of a project where you were able to get the project completed a week ahead of the deadline. Any place where you are able to give those types of measurements is what you want to include on your resume. Those are big achievements. And you're going to use strong action verbs that tell the story of your impact. So you led, you developed, you designed, you impacted. These are strong action words that really show the story that you were the one that came in and you did the thing. Then the other thing I will tell you about is I would love for you to make sure that your education dates, so if you got a college degree, maybe when you graduated from high school, all of those institutional graduation dates, remove them from your resume. And you're like, wait, why? Well, hey, you're a midlifer. So we don't want to tell your age right away because, frankly, ageism is real. And we're not lying about our age, but remember, we're just trying to get through the ATS. We're trying to just break through some of those automated tracking systems because we want to get through to the humans that will actually be our big connection. So take those dates off because, yes, ageism is real. And we are talking about that in this section. So before we move on to overcoming ageism, I want to make sure that you go back and you do these items to update your resume. And once you're done, we'll move on to Overcoming Ageism, which is on page 6. So let's talk about tackling ageism in interviews. Now, you've done all these things to make sure that your resume is up to date, you're networking on LinkedIn, you're really practicing your value statement. And by the time you make it to the interview, it's very possible that that person is going to be younger than you. Or they might be looking at your vast work experience and they're just like, okay, let's see if this person really is sharp. So be prepared. You're going to have to respond, I promise you, to at least one interview question that might touch on your age. So I want you to choose 1 to 2 responses that you're going to create and rehearse so that when it pops up, you sound smooth. And I'll tell you a very common example of a question that tackles on age is, how do you stay current with technology? Okay, that sounds very innocent, doesn't it? But again, if you're a more mature professional, they're going to assume that you don't know your tech. But hey, your response is simple. You're just saying, hey, I've worked with multiple tools and systems over the years, so I'm quick to learn and I adapt very well to new technologies. Easy. You're able to get through that smoothly and think of things that are relevant to your industry. So if they ask for you to expand on that answer, reference the types of tools that you're using in the day to day, or even some things that you're learning right now in the process. And again, we don't want you to lie about anything. I want you to just be ready and polished when these types of questions come up. So own your experience, own that maturity, because frankly, it is an asset. Think about all the times that you were a youngster applying for some of these roles, and the big thing that you were sweating over was that you maybe didn't have enough experience. Well, at your age now, yeah, you definitely do have enough experience. So I want you to write down 3 reasons why your age and experience are an asset in your current industry. Pause this video to give yourself enough time to reflect. Next, we're talking about your personal plan of action because you're not coming this far to just stay where you are. So I want you to turn to page 7 in your workbook and I want you to think about this question. What's your first actionable step after you finish this workshop? And yeah, it's time to take action because I think about myself. In January of every year, I have the same promise that I'm going to lose weight and get in better shape. And it's probably a whole lot of us that have that same New Year's resolution over and over again. And sometimes we are strong enough to do it on our own. We just decide, I'm going to knuckle down, start running, start working out, and I'm going to eat better and I can handle this because I can do it. But then there's some of us that say, no, I actually need help. I'm going to hire a trainer or a nutritionist or somebody that's going to keep me accountable because I know that I will fall off and I just would rather someone else figure out all the hard parts and tell me what to do. Well, the reason I'm telling you all this because this is the same thing when it comes to professional coaching. And coaching is the service that I provide. So, as we're talking about people like yourself that are considering making a big pivot in midlife with their careers, I have created a program that is called the Job Search Blueprint. And within the job search blueprint, I do that type of one on one coaching. And we concentrate on these 4 areas to make sure that you have done all of the necessary pieces to stand out as a quality candidate and get on to whatever that next career goal is. And if you've never worked with a coach, this is what it's like. You're working one on one with me, just like with a personal trainer. And we're trying to figure out what are your needs. And based on what your needs are, we're going to set some goals and build a plan that is unique to help you meet those goals. And I stay with you, walking you through processes so that you really don't have to search all over the place, Googling and YouTubing, trying to figure out what needs to happen next. I've already got you covered there. And more than anything, we're building your confidence because so many of us at this age, we've been rock stars for a very long time, but we find ourselves sometimes a little bit intimidated about how to navigate job searching in this digital landscape. So that is what I do with my one to one coaching program. But again, you may be somebody that wants to do it, a little bit differently, and that's okay. But I got all this support for you. So I want to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting if you decide that you want to sign up for my coaching program. We have a course that is online and it is self-paced and it includes these 6 hot topics that you really need to be very very much sharp on when you're going into this process. We're going to refresh your resume. We're going to build a career portfolio, make sure that you have ways to update your skill set, prep you for the interview, whether it's in person or virtual, making sure that you know the tricks and the nuances of networking effectively, and for people like me that had some trouble understanding job offers in the new age, I will help you understand job offers and how to negotiate what's in those job offers. So, we do this with 4 individual coaching sessions where you meet with me one on one and we break all this down depending on where your needs are. You also will be able to attend 4 weekly group workshops, very similar to what you're experiencing right here, but they're live. So you're able to come with all the questions and get answers from both me and other people that are going through the program. You'll have lifetime access to all the course materials. And so that's going to be all the videos, all of the workbooks, all the PDFs, and you will be able to just pretty much download all of that and work through it at your own pace. And if you need, maybe this is something where we need to be a little bit budget friendly, I do offer a payment plan if you're not able to pay all of it at once. But there's another option too. Maybe you don't need the one to one coaching. Maybe you feel very confidently that you can have a do it yourself option. In those situations, I do offer access to my self paced course that has all of the same content, but you are able to work at a pace that works for you. So you can go through it as quickly as you want, or you can slow down and do a little bit at a time at a pace that is comfortable for you. Alrighty. So if that is of interest to you, I want you to take a moment here. This QR code is going to be to my personal calendar where you can book time to have a strategy call with me. And we're going to talk about what your career transition needs are, and we're going to outline that so that in case you do want to sign up for one of my programs, you will have a pretty good idea of exactly where your needs are and how we could address them to make sure you're successful. And just so you know, I do offer risk free enrollment. So you're able to come into the program and poke around and read stuff and kick the tires for a full week, full 7 days to see if this is for you. And if it is, great, we get to work. But if not, then after 7 days within that time frame, if you email me, then yes, I will absolutely refund your money at that time. But I'm pretty confident that you would like what you see and that you'll be eager to get started. And after that 7 days, we hit the ground running. So, if this is something that you're interested in, I do encourage you to book a call with me so that we can talk a little bit more about your needs and how the program could possibly work in your favor. Or you could just email me at info@upskillservices.site. So, if you have enjoyed this workshop, I would love to hear from you. Send me an email. Let me know what questions you may have. If maybe there's something that I haven't been able to address in this workshop, so that we can make sure you are successful in your career transition. As always, I am happy to be of service to you. So I thank you for joining me in this workshop, and I wish you the best with your midlife career transition.